Hello YouTube, this is Hunter Search of the Brawler Cafe. Today I'm going to teach you how to roll good. So, let's get into things real fast. I'm going to be going over a bunch of different things as the video goes on, but to make this real simple for anyone who just wants to know how to roll good, we'll just go over the basics that you need, the measuring method that you need, and we'll get you on your way. So first up, you need to know how to roll straight, because if you're not rolling straight, none of these measuring methods are going to help you, because, well, if you're not rolling straight, you can't get the thing you want, my guy. Like, it's just not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. So, the specific rolling technique you use doesn't really matter as long as it's straight. As long as you're rolling in a straight line, keeping it on that straight line doesn't really matter. I personally use the pivot shot. If you don't know how to roll straight, I would recommend the pivot shot. I will link in the description Jack Kuzo's video from a year ago at the timestamp where he explains the pivot shot so that you can go figure out how to do the pivot shot. But we're just going to move on from that because I'm not the one to teach. I'm not the one who's going to be the best at teaching that. So yeah, I teach by showing. So number two, you must measure. So how to measure? There are many ways to do this. My way is the best way. I'm going to explain why this method I'm about to show you is, I think, much better than all of the other methods I've seen people doing as the video goes on. But to just get you on your way, we're going to show you how to do it. So, first things first, you take the magnet on the bottom of your Bakugan. It'll be like, usually it's a little flat spot. On some Bakugan it isn't, but you can just find it by figuring out, ooh, that's how the Bakugan opens. Ooh, that's where the magnet is. So you figure out where that is. Then you place it magnet down, aligned with the center of the core that you are aiming for. Then from there, you will take the Bakugan and using your fingers to guide it, you will roll it back towards you until it's where you want it to go. For game legality, that needs to be 2 card lengths away, unless the edge of the table is closer, in which case we'll talk about that. And then you adjust it so that it's in line with the core, and then you shoot straight, and you get it done. And it's really that simple. It's really that simple. There's some more nitty-gritty stuff that we will go into over the rest of this video, but that's really all you need. As long as you're shooting straight and doing this measuring, like what's really great about this measuring method is that it's really, really hard to screw up. In addition to like giving you all the benefits of any other measuring method, it's really hard to screw up, so it's really good for anyone who is just learning. Like when you're just learning this stuff, in addition to just being the best method, it's so impossibly difficult to screw this up. Like there's a few places where you can screw it up, like in the initial positioning, or when you're correcting it here, or if you budget without it rolling at any point. But then it's pretty easy to notice when those things have happened. So you just remeasure. And if you're off by a tiny bit, that generally won't matter because you're aiming for the center. And so like if it's off by like a smudge, then the magnet will still probably end up here or here, like on one of these tips of the core, and you'll probably still get it. Anyways. So that is typically not going to be an issue. We'll just do it one more time for the class. Boom. Easy. Easy. Now, I feel pretty well positioned to be making a video like this because I did not get taught how to do this by anyone. Like Pivot Shot, of course, taught how to do that by Jet's video. I don't even remember how I was rolling before that video. It's so long ago at this point. I've been using the Pivot Shot ever since. But basically, I discovered this on my own. Around the same time that people were discovering the other measuring methods, like around the time of MomoCon Anime Expo, I just happened to discover this. and before I had really heard of any of the other measuring methods that people were using. So because of that, because I self-discovered this, I understand why it works pretty well. And it's pretty basic when you get down to it. It's very simple. See, what you want, of course, is your Bakugan to be hitting the center of the core, ideally, because that gives you the most room, and that's like gives you the most opportunity because like when it's coming, like when the magnet is starting to come down and when it's coming off, all that time the magnet is able to magnetize. It just gives, by aiming for the center, it just gives you the most opportunity for the Bakugan to open. So with that said, so just need it aligned. And then what we're doing here, of course, is we're just reverse doing what's going to be happening when we're rolling straight, but in reverse and slowly. That's all that's happening. We're just doing that. And what's great about this, one of my favorite things about this, is that it doesn't matter what the position of the Bakugan is where you're actually rolling it. Like what I mean by that is like, see right here, we have the magnet up. This is the magnet right here, we have it up. The Bakugan is upside down. But this is going to work perfectly fine because it doesn't matter. All that matters is the magnet being down. So this gives us a lot more freedom on the distance we can be rolling from, which is to me the most important thing. This method gives you a lot more flexibility. So now let's talk about the other measuring methods. The first that I remember, that I know of coming up chronologically, is Connor with his 2 cards taped together. Now this method was good for like early days, just aiming for anything on the core matrix. But here's the problem. So we're both aiming for the same core here, aiming for that center. Here's the problem though. You might notice that if we do 2 full rotations here, we are quite a ways farther back from where the 2 cards end. And if you roll from here, we are not going to land on that core. We are going to land on the next core. So you actually, with this method, you actually need to be aiming 1 core deeper every single time because it is about that length too short compared to if you're doing it with magnet down. If you're adjusting it, say, so let's say, how would this work? Let's try that. I think that would work properly. Nope, that did not work at all. Okay, I'm not going to bother figuring that out because I have my method that works perfectly fine, so we're going to move on from that. The method people used after that is that because the mats that they had, the cons, had all the core outlines, people used those to measure. So people realized that if you are rolling from the 6th core away from the one you are aiming for, you will just land on it all the time. As you can see, this is the proper distance. This is actually the proper distance. If we do our measuring here, that's 1 roll, that's 2 rolls. Now this knowledge has some very important applications that we're going to get into in a bit. But yeah, this one worked. Of course, it's a lot more limited than manually rolling back because like this has like a strict distance it needs to be. So yeah. But this gives us some important knowledge that we're going to come back to in a bit. Now, using that same method, people figured out the ruler measuring method. And with that, on centimeters, which is what I have here because I'm a Canadian boy using a real thing. real metrics, it's 22 centimeters. I believe in inches, it is 9 inches. So that's what you want to do there. This is the method that Firelina uses, of course. Of course, now the reason, beyond just being so strict, the reason why these methods are inferior to the method I showed you before that I use should be plainly obvious. Both of these methods require something specific physically that isn't one of the game pieces. Like, this method requires you to have a ruler, the other method requires you to be playing on a specific mat or be using cores to do it, and the Connor method, which, as we established, is not actually fully accurate, requires you to be carrying around those two cards all the time and position them, and it takes a bit. It's a bit of a pain to do that every single turn. So why I prefer the method I've shown you over those two should be plainly obvious. The big advantage is that all this requires is the actual Bakugan. You don't need anything external to be able to do this. Now there is one more that is very similar to the method I've shown you. And this is one of the main reasons I'm making this video, to be honest. Because I've seen this method that Jet Kuso uses. And in most cases, if you understand it well enough, if you're able to do it well, then it works just as well as the method I've shown you. So what it is you place it next to the core, as we've done here, and then you just roll it straight back, except there's the problem right there. That was not straight. Think that was it? Yeah, that was it. So, you just roll it back straight, except you're letting go of it instead of holding it all the way back. Now, the issues with that should be plainly obvious. It's because you're releasing the Bakugan, it's a lot easier to screw up. Like, you aren't keeping it straight the whole way as easily. And it's extremely easy to screw up. And I've seen lots and lots of people screwing this up when they've tried to learn to measure with this method, which is why I highly, highly recommend this above it. Beyond that, it's just, it's a lot more difficult to get specific distances that you want, because you're releasing it. That's been my experience, but the big thing to me is just that, like, you don't get any, it doesn't give you anything that just manually doing it doesn't give you, except maybe a bit more speed, but ultimately, when it comes down to it, you can do this fairly quickly. Like, just like that, we're done. Boom. Easy. Nothing slow about it, really. The speed advantage is like very, very marginal. I don't think that's a point worth noting. So basically the message here is, if you've been trying with Jet's rollback method and it's been not working for you, try manually doing it, because it will probably work out a lot better for you, because it is way harder to screw up. And depending on the Bakugan you're using, like Bakugan that have more ridges pointing out of them, or as they call it, altobrantes, the sleeves, Bakugan that have more of that are more likely to get screwed up when you're rolling them back, because if they hit one of the stuff popping out of it, then it might, you know, it might affect the rollback. But if you're doing this, then it doesn't happen, because you're manually controlling it the whole way back. So yeah. And of course, you still need to roll it straight when you're doing it forward. But that's a much more natural thing that you're doing there, rolling it forward instead of rolling it backward. And you only need to get it right once instead of twice in a row. So you know. Yeah. So, with that said, let's get into a few applications of this, beyond just getting on the core that you want. So, as we talked about earlier with the core measuring, we know that 6 core lengths is 2 roll lengths. So what does that tell us? What does that tell us? That tells us that one roll length is 3 cores. So let's position this here again. Roll it forward. Okay, magnet is here. Right now, magnet is here. About a third of the way up. And then if we roll it here, magnet is still not facing down. When we roll it here, it will be down again. So what this means is that if there are up to 2 cores in front of the core that you want, you will still be able to get it just as easily. If it's 3 cores deep, then you can get it just as easily, because the magnet will not be down when it's crossing over those first 2 cores. So let's just show that off real quick. Wow, I'm so good at this game, guys. Look at me. Look at me, guys. I'm so good at this game. That was great. First screw up. Good job. Okay. There we go. Now, obviously, in actual gameplay, unless this was really close to you, you would need to be doing it from 2 card lengths away, but that's just going to make things more difficult for the demonstration, so I'm not going to do that here. I could show you, though. I could show you. Alright. Break it out and show you what that would actually look like. Yeah, there we go. And the core died. Okay, goodbye. Goodbye, Red Fist. So yeah, that's how that works. Now, this is even more applications. So let's talk about a hypothetical that definitely did not occur exactly as I'm about to show it in game 2 of my final match with Jet in the Jet Kuso tournament that I won. This definitely did not happen in game 2, and he definitely did not adapt his core positioning in game 3, so that I couldn't do this again. So this is let's say this is a magic shield. This is my own magic shield, okay? Doesn't matter what this is actually. So I see that. Oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what I need to do here, if I want to easily steal this, I just need to get rid of this core. If this core positioned right here is off the field, then I can get that no problem. So with our turn 1, we are going to screw up because we're a joke. Can't get it every time. Still just human. Wow, what the heck was that? I'm really screwing up here. Deepest apologies. That's all me though. That is all me. There we go. So we grab that, then we go, we either, what happens, we either re-roll or we just wait for the next turn. Whether we win or lose, doesn't matter. If we win, it's off the field. If we lose, we just put it somewhere else that's not in the way. Or if we have a re-roll, we do it right away. And then we just go, okay. We just do this. And we get it. We just stole their core, no problem. So that's something that you should start keeping in mind if you're fighting against people who start learning this. Be careful with how you're setting up the core matrix, because if you set it up in the wrong way, you can let your opponent just steal that super easily. Like, let's say there's like nothing in this column over here and you put an important core here, or like all they have is like here and it's not the 3 away. Cool. Now your opponent just goes, all right, why don't I just, I'm not doing that. I can't do it. I hate it so much. I hate it so much. I don't want to have to redo it. Just let me manually do it. Know everything is fine and get on with my day. And you get it. It's super easy. Other things. This is also why trap cores don't exist, because even if you put 2 in front, oh cool, doesn't exist. I just roll over it every time. I've told this story before, but at the draft event for BR that we did, one of my opponents placed a trap core in front of all 3 of my magic shields. I didn't hit them a single time. Not a single time in the entire game. Of course, if there are 3 ahead, in this hypothetical situation where your opponent has set up the 3 trap cores in front, or there are just 3 in front of the core that you want, here's what you do. Just roll diagonally. Just roll diagonally. And you will screw up the straight roll, because rolling diagonally is a bit harder than it looks, in my opinion. I have not perfectly mastered it, so if I screw up here a couple times, that'll be why. Oh my god, come on. There we go. So even if your opponent has, even if there are 3 in front of the core that you want, you can still grab it fairly easily by diagonal rolling. It is extremely unlikely that you'll have a situation where from both diagonal angles and front, you will be in this situation. Like all diagonal angles and front, like you'll just have 3 on all sides. Like that's basically impossible to occur. And if you get good enough at this, you can just snipe cores from your opponent's far end of the field. Now that can be rather difficult because to be the proper card lengths away from the hide matrix, that requires a significant amount of distance. And with our current understanding of the rules, you do still need to be on your side of the field from where you're rolling. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. When you're doing this sort of sniping thing, you want to be doing this on a reroll, because if you're doing it during the simultaneous roll, it can be very easy for your opponent to realize what you're doing and just get in your way, because they have less distance to travel to reach that core, so they can just get in your way. So when you're doing this sort of thing, you generally want to be doing it on the reroll, where your opponent will not be able to counter that. And if you notice that your opponent is about to try and go for something, you can of course respond with your own reroll and stop that from happening. Grab the core first. What else? Is there anything else to talk about? I don't think there's anything else particularly to talk about. Diagonal rolls, if you get good at them, are also a great counter to any sort of aggro roll, because it allows you to come in from the side, not be directly in their path. But just in general, just learning to be fast and aiming for a core that's really close to your edge will generally be all you really need against that. So it's not that hard to deal with that. I don't think there's really anything else. I think I've covered everything. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I think I've got everything at this point. This sort of stuff will just like make your game way better. If you have one last thing I will say is that if you have a Bakugan that you're having trouble, like it's not keeping the cores or whatever, what I always recommend is try rolling it the opposite way of the way that you're currently rolling it, because there are several Bakugan like these 2 butts, Peruvian Pegatrix, who I've used frequently, and they had a tendency to just leave their core behind if I rolled them along the arrow. But rolling them backwards changed things, because like say Pegatrix, for example. Pegatrix, when you roll her the right way, just has this little tail that's like just like boop, boop, boop. That's not going to do much to stop it from just flipping over. It's like way too much part of that round original ball. So it's very easy for this to just keep rolling and leave the core behind. But if you roll it backwards, instead the head gets in the way. And the head is very much not like that, and is enough of a thing that will stop it from just continuing to roll, and will thus keep the core. So I always recommend trying out that sort of thing if you're having trouble with a Bakugan. Obviously, I do not believe in Nilius defects. I have 2 Chaos Nilius, no problems with them. I haven't gotten the opportunity to play with any Chaos Nilius, and I've tried basically every single one I've seen. that has had that issue. My Aurelus Nilius doesn't have any such issues too. I've tried this Chaos Nilius and Aurelus Nilius, which apparently had these issues. No issues whatsoever. Nilius defects are fake, except for this one with the Aquos. This Aquos one is really bad. But I've never really seen it on Chaos and Aurelus, so Nilius defects are fake. Prove it to me. You can't, because I don't believe you. Alright, that's about it. I actually wanted to make this video like 2 weeks ago, but I decided I just need to get this done. Despite being rather demotivated on making content for the game in general. Like just bad news. Won't go into it, but you know, puts me in a very demotivated place. And it would be nice if Spin Master could say like anything. If they would say anything, like they could if they want to. If they really wanted to, they could. But they choose not to. They choose to leave us in the dark. But whatever. That's that. And that's basically why there hasn't been much content the last couple of weeks. I really was planning on doing a Flips 1 year later video on the anniversary of the original Flips Are Bad video. But for the same reason, that just kind of fell through. So I don't know when I'm going to be putting out more videos, but I just really wanted to get this out there, explain to people how to do this stuff, and give people a quick guide on how to roll good. And now you know, so go forth and roll good. This is Harshers, signing off.